بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Okay, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, sallallahu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So there is no laptop and there is no screen, so you have to, we have to give up this one today, inshallah, the projection. In fact, today I was counting on the laptop and the screen because I was going to go over some articles online with you. But, since there is no laptop and screen, we'll just deal with what we have. Today, inshallah, we will go. This is the first time we're not doing the 42 Hadith of Imam al-Nawawi, but we're continuing the additional 8 Ahadith that were added by Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, Imam Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, who wrote that beautiful and most comprehensive commentary on the 42 Hadith of Imam al-Nawawi, which he called Jami' al-Ulum wal-Hikam, the Compendium of Knowledge and Wisdom, and he added to the 42 Hadith 8 more Hadith. So 450 Hadith are discussed and elaborated on in this great book, Jami' al-Ulum wal-Hikam, Compendium of Knowledge and Wisdom, which I said before that it has been translated into English, and the title of the translation is actually the Compendium of Knowledge and Wisdom. So today we're going over Hadith number 43 of these Hadith of Jami' al-Ulum wal-Hikam, and this Hadith was reported by Al-Bukhari and Muslim from Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, and he said that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, ألحق الفرائض بأهلها فما أبقت الفرائض فلأولى رجل ذكر. ألحق الفرائض بأهلها. لحق means what? To catch up with. So alhiqu here would not mean catch. It would mean attach the fara'id to its deserving people, but it actually means give the fara'id, which are the designated shares of inheritance. The designated farida of fara'id are the designated shares of inheritance. Fara'id jam'a farida. Farida in this context is not every obligation, but rather the obligations when it comes to miras, mawarith, the laws of inheritance. So what is the farida? It is the share of inheritance that has been designated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Qur'an. It is called farida. The plural is fara'id. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this hadith said, Al-hiqul fara'ida bi ahliha, give the designated shares of inheritance to their deserving people. Give the designated shares of inheritance to their deserving people. فَمَا أَبْقَتِ الْفَرَائِدِ. So whatever is left behind, فَلِأَوْلَى رَجُلٍ ذَكَرٍ. It should be given, or it shall go to the closest male relative. It shall go to the closest male relative. فَلِأَوْلَى رَجُلٍ ذَكَرٍ. Awla means what? The most prioritized, the most deserving, meaning the closest. Then rajulin zakar which means male man, and if you translate it literally, it will be a male man. But here the mention of zakar is for emphasis that it will go to the closest male relative. So now, there are two ways to go over the explanation of this hadith. There is the more fiqhi way, which is basically a lesson in mawarith, or the shares of inheritance, and there is the more general way of addressing the topic. So we will choose like a mixture of both ways. We will go over al-fara'id very quickly that were mentioned in the Qur'an, and then we will talk about the general meanings and implications of this hadith. Particularly, we should particularly focus, and this should be our habit, to particularly focus on the issues of cultural pertinence or cultural relevance. Here, the issue of cultural relevance, and we don't have enough sisters here, we only have one, would be why the male relative. and why males are favored in this system of inheritance in general. Because of the responsibility, yes, certainly we'll have to, but what we want to have a comprehensive answer to those questions and to their likes, because there are many such questions, many similar questions that you may come across about the prudence and the wisdom of the teachings, the Islamic teachings, particularly when it comes to laws, particularly when it comes to issues of cultural sensitivity. And when we talk about cultural sensitivity, we're just talking about the modern culture of today, right? Keep in mind when you speak with Christians, and Christians will tell you that Christianity makes more sense to me. Do you know why Christianity makes more sense? Why modern, with an emphasis, modern Christianity makes more sense to our contemporaries, to people nowadays? Huh? Because they made it. Because they made it. And if you make it, it makes more sense to me, to you, right? Because they changed it, and they keep on changing it. So every generation would change it to suit their liking. Therefore, you will like it because you made it to suit your liking. So when we talk about modern Christianity, we're not talking at all about St. Paul's teachings, let alone the teachings of Jesus, peace be upon him. We're not talking about this at all. We're talking about what people made, what people constructed to be, and they accepted for a religion for themselves, and they would like to call it Christianity so that they have this historical aroma, they have this legitimacy, they have this basically ancestry, spiritual ancestry. But it is not anything to do with the teachings of St. Paul or Jesus himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we will come to this, but first the hadith said, "Alhiq al-Fara'id bi ahliha," give the designated shares of inheritance to its deserving people. فَمَا أَبْقَتِ الْفَرَائِدْ فَلِأَوْلَى رَجُلٍ ذَكَرٍ, and whatever is left shall go to the closest male relative, or most deserving male relative. Al-Fara'id, if you go over the ayat that discuss al-Fara'id, mostly you'll find them in Surah An-Nisa. Surah An-Nisa. Surah An-Nisa, a chapter of women, has to do a lot with women, family laws, and the laws of inheritance. And in Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إن الذين يأكلون أموال اليتامى ظلما إنما يأكلون في بطونهم نارا وسيصلون سعيرا يوصيكم الله في أولادكم للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين. يوصيكم الله في أولادكم. Allah recommends for you concerning your children. للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين. For the male, a share equal to 2 females. So for each son, a share equal to $2. So meaning that the daughter will take half of the share of the son. Now, you have to look at this within the context of, the society when this ayah was revealed. Did they give the woman anything? Did they give her any share of the inheritance? Absolutely not. And then Sa'd ibn Rabi'a died, and his wife came and she said that that my daughter's uncles want to take all of the inheritance. And then these ayat were revealed to give the daughters the majority of the inheritance. That used to go before to whom? To the male relatives, to the closest, most deserving male relative. But not only that Allah gave the daughters part of the inheritance and then the rest will go to the male relatives. No, Allah said that the daughters, if you have two daughters, they will get 2/3 of what he leaves behind. 2/3. So if he has the daughters and he has his father and mother, the daughters will get 2/3 and the father and mother will get what? 1/6 each. Then the uncle will get nothing. But if the father is not there and there is the mother and an uncle and two daughters, 2/3 will go to the daughters, 1/6 will go to the mother, and the rest, which is only 1/6, will go to the uncle. Prior to this, the uncle used to take the whole thing.
What if there is no one? Will the girl get everything?
I'm very sorry, but for some reason I am extremely thirsty tonight. And is there water? Yeah, just yes, sister.
I said, if there is no one, will the daughter inherit everything or not?
No, the daughter will inherit half, and the two daughters will inherit 2/3,
What happened to the other half?
and the other half will be distributed. Well, basically, there is likely someone, so there is likely like a spouse, a parent, someone, but if there is no spouse, no parent, and no grandchildren from another daughter or another son, from another son, no grandchildren from another son, then that daughter will get half, and the rest of it will go to the closest immediate relative. But in this case, if you have a sister, if the deceased had a sister and a daughter, daughter, the daughter will get half, the sister will get half, and the closest male relative will not get anything. Unless that closest male relative was a brother. So the daughter will get half, and the other half will be divided between the brother and the sister, 2 shares for the brother, 1 share for the sister. So now, the idea here is you want to compare between this and what was present. But not only compare between this and what was present, because there may have been another better system that the Arabs did not know. So what about the Judeo-Christian tradition that you keep on hearing about? Judeo-Christian, this is a Judeo-Christian, the Judeo-Christian foundation is Judeo-Christian. What about the Judeo-Christian tradition? And like I told you, whatever is practiced now is not Christianity. It is whatever they want to make. And in some parts, it's not even claimed to be Christianity. In some parts, they claim it to be Christianity, but it is manipulated Christianity. It's not the St. Paul's Christianity, and certainly has nothing to do with Jesus' Christianity. But in the true Judeo-Christian traditions, in the Bible, in the scripture, it says in Numbers 27:8, "And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a man die and have no son, then you shall cause his inheritance to pass on to his daughter." So the daughter gets the inheritance only if there is no son. In Islam, the daughter will get some of the inheritance in the presence of the son. So, يوصيكم الله في أولادكم للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين. للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين, meaning that concerning your children, the male will have 2 shares, and the female will have 1. فإن كن نساء فوق 2 فلهن ثلث ما ترك. And if they are women, 2 or more, then they will deserve 2/3 of what he had left behind. If they are daughters, 2 or more, they will be deserving of 2/3 of what he had left behind. وإن كانت واحدة فلها النصف مما ترك ولأبويه لكل واحد منهما السدس. فلها النصف ولأبويه لكل واحد منهما السدس مما ترك إن كان له ولد، فإن لم يكن له ولد وورثه أخواه فلأمه الثلث، فإن كان له إخوة فلأمه السدس من بعد وصية يوصي بها أو دين. آباؤكم وأبناؤكم لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا فريضة من الله إن الله كان عليما حكيما. So فإن كن نساء فوق اثنتين, so if they are women, daughters, 2 or more, they will get 2/3 of what he had left behind. وإن كانت واحدة فلها النصف, and if she is one, if he left behind one daughter, she will get what? Half of what he left behind. ولأبويه لكل واحد منهما السدس إن كان له ولد, and for his parents each one will get 1/6 if he had left behind children. Walad here does not mean son, it means a child, which could be a son or daughter, because the daughter also is walad, meaning mawlud, meaning, you know, so they give birth to her. So إن كان له ولد, yes, so فلأبويه لكل واحد منهما السدس مما ترك إن كان له ولد. So the parents will get 1/6 if there is a child. فإن لم يكن له ولد وورثه أبواه فلأمه الثلث. And if he had no child and his parents inherited him or survived him and inherited him, his mother will be deserving of 1/3. Is it 1/3 of the whole thing or 1/3 of what is left behind after everybody takes his share? Likely it is 1/3 of what is left behind after everyone had taken his share. Meaning he does not have a child, so his mother will take 1/3. Where is the father here? Some people say that this case pertains to where there is no father. But here the father will take 2/3 of what is left, and the mother will take 1/3. Whatever the parents inherit together, the mother will take 1/3 and the father will take 2/3 of that. Keep in mind, likely what he has already come down to him from his father. So if his father is being favored here and he's taking 2/3, likely what he has, some of it, if not most of it, had come down to him from his father. So in this case, if he left behind a wife and 2 parents, no child, the wife will take 1/4. The rest, which is the 3/4, will be divided between the mother and the father. The mother will take 1/3 of what is left behind after the wife took her 1/4, and the father will take 2/3. فإن لم يكن له ولد وورثه أبواه فلأمه الثلث. If he had no child and his parents inherited him, فلأمه الثلث, his mother will take 1/3 of what the parents inherit, not of everything, because if there is a spouse, then it will be 1/3 after the spouse took her first, according to some opinion that I believe to be stronger. I'm sorry, I'm just going to keep on drinking. Yes, because I'm doing this high protein, low carb diet. And then I didn't find anything to eat. Everything was frozen. So I found fish in the fridge. That's the only thing that was easy to eat. And I ate fish.
Now wants to swim.
If the parents, sorry, it just,
Yes.
if the parents get 1/6, regardless of the number of children, and if they have children, both of them get 1/6, right?
The parents, regardless of the number of children, each parent will get 1/6. That is the least that parents get.
So yeah, it doesn't
Because
matter.
they get 1/6, doesn't matter, regardless. And he could have 200 children. The parents will get, the father will get 1/6, the mother will get 1/6. They both get 1/3. That is the least they get as parents. And the rest will be divided between the 200 children. keep in mind, culturally, you think that the parents are getting very little. Culturally, you think that the wife is getting very little. She gets 1/8, if there are children. So culturally, you think that the wife is getting what? Do you know why you culturally think this way? Because nowadays, kids have two kids, or people have two or three kids. But in the past, not long ago, our grandparents, they at least had 10 or 12 kids. So the wife was getting more than any of the children. But nowadays you feel that she's getting less because she, the kid, you have two kids, a boy and a girl. So the boy will be getting 2-3 times more than his mother. Whereas in the past, when people actually had 12 and 15 kids and stuff, the wife was getting a very sizable, considerable share of the inheritance. So we are cultural creatures. We made up by our cultures. Our thinking is programmed according to our cultures.
But then how do you reconcile that? I understand the Qur'an, and I'm not disagreeing. But isn't it for each time and place? So what's the logic for limiting because these days, culturally and also when we live in the world, men don't live up to their, in general, to their obligations. So in terms of supporting sisters and granddaughters and those type of things. So really the obligation falls onto the woman to support the children and herself also in the long term, because the chances widows and divorced women, they don't remarry again.
Then we will talk about what we could do to protect the rights of women in light of the corrupted culture of today. But the corrupted culture of today does not mean that we give in to it. It means that we fix it and we go back to the natural social balance. Do you know that there is an ecological balance in this world? So whenever man disrupts the ecological balance, a lot of people will jump on your neck and say, disrupting the ecological balance is bad, right? All the environmentalists and so on, disrupting the ecological balance is bad. Because because they feel, whether they believe in God or not, that it is a perfect balance. But this perfect balance was made by chance, according to the atheists. But regardless of who made it, the same being who made this perfect ecological balance also made a perfect social balance that man tinkered with until he ruined it. And now we suffer from the results of man's tinkering with not only the ecological balance, but also the social balance. This is a nice article that was written by a libertarian woman from North Carolina, who is proud, to talk about her being from the Tar Heel state. The Tar Heel state is in reference to the soldiers of the Confederate. So she is really not like an Islamist or anything close to that. She is like a mainstream woman from the Tar Heel state of North Carolina. Let me tell you what she says, because it is important that you understand that this tinkering with the social balance is a problem. So the title of her, the title of her article was "Why Men Aren't Getting Married Anymore." Why men? And this article was published by the libertarianrepublic.com. libertarianrepublic.com. Why men aren't getting married anymore. She says marriage has nothing to offer for men. According to the Pew Research Center, the data from 2012 illustrates a steady increase in the percentages of American men and women who are 25 years and older who have never been married. The same research shows that men are more likely than women to have never made it down the aisle, 23% versus 17%. The facts are clear that fewer people are getting married. The question is the question as to why men are choosing not to, in large numbers, remains a debate. Not wanting to tie the knot is not a concept limited within the US borders. According to the Office for National Statistics, marriage in Britain is at its lowest level since 1895. In 2011, there were just 286,634 ceremonies, a 41% fall from 1972. Although not getting married has been a progression over the years, one of the most convincing reasons for men specifically is simply because they do not need to. Aside from the obvious economic inconveniences that are involved with an actual wedding, a recent piece titled "Why Men Won't Marry You" by Suzanne Vinker goes right for the jugular when she argues that it is actually the woman's fault that this is happening. No matter how difficult it is to hear it, there is, the writer of this piece, by the way, is a woman. And all of those writers are women. No matter how difficult it is to hear it, there is a logic to what she is arguing, starting with the reality that men can have what they want without getting married. The free market supplies the demand sufficiently, so why get married? Gone are the days of saving oneself for marriage, and the old adage of why buy the cow comes into play. There used to be great societal pressure to wait to get married before having sex or having children. In some aspects, it has been a good thing that women aren't scampering away to deliver babies in secrecy, etc., etc. But simply put, Vinker asserts that there is virtually nothing in it for men. The attitude that women don't need a man and men don't need a woman over the last several decades has finally manifested into reality. Then Dr. Helen Smith, the author of Men on Strike, believes this is a large factor. This is a large factor preventing men from walking down the aisle. Men who know there is a good chance they will lose their friends, their respect, their space, their sex life, their money, and if all goes wrong, their family, she writes. They don't want to enter into a legal contract with someone who could effectively take half of their savings, pension, and property when the honeymoon period is over. Men aren't wimping out by staying unmarried or being commitment phobes. They're just being smart. So you tinker with the social system that God created. You try to basically avenge the women who have been wronged for decades or centuries in Middle Ages by giving the woman half of the man's savings upon divorce after they spent 1 or 2 years together. Then you think that you're doing justice to the women. But since man is short-sighted and has limited and non-comprehensive knowledge, man does not realize that this, game will backlash and cause so much hardship and distress to women before it does to men. Because from the other end, men will not be interested into getting into this legal contract, and they will refrain from marriage, they will defer, they will delay it, and then their chances don't get worse as rapidly as women. So if you're 25 and you had 5 or 6 girlfriends, you could continue to have more girlfriends and continue to experiment more and try, a diversified assortment of friends until you're 31. You're not late or anything. 35, you still have time, you had 24 girlfriends, you still have time to have like 29 or 35. And then your chances are not getting worse. Because, like a man who's 38 years old, he's not actually in bad shape. He still has a good chance of getting married and getting, for the woman, it is not true. She's already getting into like depression and anxiety and a myriad of other psychological illnesses. She's already getting so anxious. She's already feeling that she's getting old. She's already less capable and competent of child rearing and child raising and child, conceiving and, feeding, breastfeeding, rearing, raising, all of that stuff. So her chances are worsening. And that is the reality that we created by trying to tinker with the social balance that God created. The solution is to go back and to basically adjust your lives back to the social balance that God created, where you realize that men and women do not necessarily have to be similar, or to have to have similar roles. They have different complementing roles, and because they're complementing, they unite into this union as one. Because if they have similar roles, they would never unite as one in this union of marriage. Naturally, this is not expected. Two similar people will never complement one another and have a unity to be one entity. They'll continue to always be two, because they are two similar beings, entities. But if they are different, then they complement each other like the pieces of the puzzle, and they can unite into this union, or this one entity or one institution called marriage. Anyway, why are we saying this? Because we're saying that the social balance that God created, part of the social balance that God created, keep in mind that it's called socioeconomic, because economic and social are mixed, intertwined all the time. So it is a socioeconomic balance. Within the socioeconomic balance that God, laid down for us and that God designed for us, is for men to be responsible for families. Because you judge the world from your spectacles as a New Jerseyan or a New Yorker in the 21st century. You're not judging the world from the perspective of a farmer somewhere in the Midwest, let alone a farmer in the Democratic Republic of whatever, in Africa. Congo, yeah. I just didn't want to say those things so that I'm not being stereotypical or anything. But somewhere in Africa, somewhere in Asia, I come from Africa, so it is, I have the liberty to say that. So somewhere, from Africa, somewhere from Asia, where this is a reality. I mean, people work hard. Jobs are strenuous, jobs are risky, jobs involve a lot of muscular power and a lot of risk taking as well. So to provide safety, security, and sustenance for your family is not, a leisurely activity. Like it could be sometimes. I'm not, saying leisurely activity here, but if you work in a white collar job and you go and, like you're sitting behind an office and you get your coffee breaks every 15 minutes and so on, it is certainly not like someone who's working on a farm in the middle of Africa. So now you want to just get rid of your biases and your limitations and your ignorance as, like a modernist feminist thinker, and see the world as it is, not as you want to see it. And then you will have to understand that there are different roles and there need to be different roles. If the men are not living up to their roles, you force them to live up to their roles. You do not, just change the whole scheme because men are not living up to their roles. Because when you change the whole scheme, who's going to be, who's going to suffer the backlash of this? Who's going to suffer from the imbalance that you will create? The weaker segment of that equation, or the weaker party in that equation. This happens to be women, unfortunately, not men. And I have 3 daughters and 1 boy, and I should be more concerned about, the safety, security of my daughters than I am about concerned about my son. And so it is important for me to see that they are safe and secure, and they get, and the rest of the girls and the rest of the women, they get well treated and they get fairly treated. But getting fairly treated is not being treated equally, because the concept of equality versus equity implies similarity. And that similarity is what is the pursuit of that similarity. The vain pursuit of that similarity is what is hurting women big time. So within that system, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يوصيكم الله في أولادكم للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين فإن كن نساء فوق 2 فلهن ثلث ما ترك وإن كانت واحدة فلها النصف ولأبويه لكل واحد منهما السدس مما ترك إن كان له ولد فإن لم يكن له ولد وورثه أبواه فلأمه الثلث فإن كان له إخوة فلأمه السدس. فإن كان له إخوة فلأمه السدس, and if he has brothers, siblings, then his mother will take this 1/6. So if he has no siblings and no children, his mother will take 1/3 of what is left, and his father will take the other 2/3. But keep in mind, in the case where he has siblings or children, and that is most of the cases, you're usually not survived by your parents, you're usually survived by your children. So most of the time you will have children. And then most of the time, if the parents are alive, what are the parents getting? 1/6. Is it 1/6 for the male or the female? The father or the mother? If there are children, each one of them gets 1/6. Why? Didn't you ask yourself? If you think that femininity per se is the effective cause or the illah or the reason behind the having of the inheritance, if that is the reason, shouldn't it apply here? If femininity is the effective cause, so femininity is not the effective cause. In fact, sometimes the woman inherits and her counter male does not inherit. When does that happen?
He's not there.
Stepfather?
Huh?
Stepfather?
No, the mother's mother and the mother's father. The mother's mother will inherit in the absence of the mother. Her husband will not inherit, who is a grandparent as well. So you have 2 grandparents, your mother's mother and your mother's father. If the mother is not present, the mother's mother will inherit, the mother's father will not inherit. Sometimes the women do hajb of men, or they impede the inheritance of men. They bar men from inheritance. and that there many times they do.
Can't that happen? I mean, is it allowed? I thought once we die, we don't have a say. It's Allah's. We decide how the money goes. We can't stop anybody from inheriting.
No, but Allah, it is based on the Hajj laws of Allah. You know, the Hajj, the impediment to inheritance are barring from inheritance by certain relatives. Like if the father is present, he will make Hajj of the siblings. The siblings cannot inherit in the presence of the father. You know, and if the father is present, we said the siblings do not inherit. If the closer male relative is present and there is no parents, children, brothers, and the closest male relative is present, he does Hajj or barring of inheritance from the rest of the relatives. If you have one sister and one daughter, they will do Hajj of all the male relatives that are farther away from them. So if you leave behind one sister and one daughter, what does the sister get? 1/2. The daughter, 1/2. They get the full inheritance. If there is an uncle, he gets nothing. So here, women are doing Hajj of men. Women are inheriting just like men. In the case of the parents, in the presence of the children. Women are sometimes inheriting when men are not inheriting. In the case of the maternal grandmother versus the maternal grandfather. So femininity is not the effective cause. But why is it that the daughter would inherit half of the son, but most of the time the mother would inherit just like the father? Huh? Because the different responsibilities are not applicable anymore to the parents because they're older in age and their needs are similar. And so they're not starting their lives. They're not starting their lives, but at the start of life, the male will be responsible for a lot more. Even in the middle of his life, he will be responsible for a lot more because he is responsible for his female relatives that don't have, a sustainer. That includes sisters.
What about the grandchildren?
The grandchildren, they inherit.
The fathers, if the father or the mother is not there, do they inherit their share from the grandfather?
The grandchildren, they inherit their share from the grandfather if there is no son, if there is no direct son. If there is a direct son, then that will be an issue. They will get, they would not, in this case, the grandfather is recommended, emphatically recommended, to give them a share in the will, the wasiyyah. Now, if he does not give them a share in the wasiyyah, then some of the modern laws, like in Egypt, they give them a share which is called the wasiyyah al-wajibah, which is called the obligatory wasiyyah. Like they're saying he should have given them. Since he did not give them, we will give them. Because he was wrong in not giving them. Because in all honesty, he should give them from his wasiyyah. They are his grandchildren, their father died. He knows that they will be barred by his own children, their uncles. So he should give them their father's share in his wasiyyah. Yes?
Unfortunately, this is very common, especially in contemporary Muslim societies, where the father basically just abandoned the children. And sometimes the children, they grow up without the father, and they're very successful afterwards. And the issue comes that, is the father entitled to a share of their wealth if the child treated citizen, even though the father did not share any of the wealth of the child?
Yes. And it is important for us to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sent down the law so that it is a general framework for all of us to use in our judgments. To custom fit it to different scenarios will not be feasible. There is no law that is custom tailored. There is no law that is custom tailored for different scenarios at different times. Why should the law not be custom tailored? Because the scenarios are unlimited. Now, tell me, so he left them. He left them when they were 1 year old, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. He did not support them. He did not support them after age 5, after age 4, before, from the beginning, from what time? So he did not support them. He did not. How much did he not support them? He did not support them because their mother wanted to take them away, and took them away, and prevented him from visitation and so on and so forth. So he tried to strike back at her, and by not sustaining his children, or because he just wanted to abandon them. There are endless scenarios. So the law should not come to be custom tailored for 200,000 scenarios. So we will take the law and then apply it. This father who did not support his children, if the child dies, the father inherits from his child because it is still his child. So what about the fact that he did not support his child? Who can claim that from him? Who can, take him to court for that? The mother who supported them. That is her right. She can take him to court. And if she takes him to an Islamic court, the judge will give her, No, we're talking about the Islamic system. If you take him to the court here, they'll take his birth certificate. So if she takes him to the Islamic court will give her all the money that she spent, will take it from him, even if that includes interdiction, which is hajr, which is to put a hold on his assets, all of his assets, seize his assets, sell his assets, and give her what she spent because she's entitled to it. So in this case, we do not fix the wrong by another wrong. We fix the wrong itself, not by doing another wrong. So he did not support his child. The mother who supported that child goes to court, brings him in before the judge, tells the judge, complains to the judge orders him to pay her. He does not. The judge seizes his assets and gives her the money after he sells the assets. This is the way we correct this wrong. But to say that we will not let him inherit from his son after his son dies, that would be correcting the wrong by another wrong. So now, which other ayah in Surah An-Nisa, the next ayah in Surah An-Nisa that talks about shares of inheritance? Yeah, but before this, احنا خلصنا يوصيكم الله في أولادكم. Yeah, صح. So we have like this is the first verse. We have the last verse of Al-Kalala. But we have another kalala in the verses of the وَلَكُمْ نِصْفُ مَا تَرَكَ أَزْوَاجُكُمْ إِنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ وَلَكُمْ نِصْفُ مَا تَرَكَ أَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَلَكُمْ نِصْفُ مَا تَرَكَ أزواجكم إن لم يكن لهن ولد فإن كان لهن ولد فلكم الربع مما تركن من بعد وصية يوصين بها أو دين ولهن الربع مما تركتم إن لم يكن لكم ولد فإن كان لكم ولد فلهن الثمن مما تركتم من بعد وصية توصون بها أو دين وإن كان رجل يورث كلالة أو امرأة وله أخ أو أخت فلكل واحد منهما السدس فإن كانوا أكثر من ذلك فهم شركاء في الثلث من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين غير مضار وصية من الله والله عليم حليم. So the next one that we have to go over is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designates the shares of the spouses. Allah says وَلَكُمْ نِصْفُ مَا تَرَكَ أَزْوَاجُكُمْ إِن لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُنَّ وَلَدٌ. To you is half of what your wives leave behind if they have no children. And if they have children, then you're entitled to 1/4. And to them is 1/4 of what you leave behind if you have no children. If you have children, they take 1/8. وإن كان رجل يورث كلالة, and if it is a man that is if it is a man with no father or with no ancestors or descendants, so it is father and as far as it goes up, grandfather and so on, and son and as far as it goes down. So no ancestors or descendants, then كلالة, وإن كان رجل يورث كلالة أو امرأة or a woman, no ancestor, nothing. عمود النسب, which are the ancestors and descendants are missing. Then hawashi, which are the siblings, they will have a share. In this particular verse, the shares that are mentioned here are of which siblings? The maternal siblings only. وإن كان الرجل يورث كلالة أو امرأة وله أخ أو أخت, those are the maternal siblings, half siblings from the mother, his mother's children. فلكل واحد منهما السدس. Each one of them will be entitled to 1/6.
Which one is this? Which kalala is this?
This is a kalala also.
What's the difference between this kalala and the other kalala?
Both are kalala. But here, this kalala, we're explaining the shares of the maternal half siblings. In the other kalala at the end of Surah An-Nisa, we're explaining the shares of the full or paternal siblings. So,
How do you differentiate between the two ayahs? Because I've always often read them. I found them in conflict because I could never.
that is the Sunnah. And the explanation of the Sahaba and the Fatawa Sahaba that designated the difference between the two ayahs. The first ayah is talking about the maternal siblings. وإن كان الرجل يورث كلالة أو امرأة وله أخ أو أخت فلكل واحد منهما السدس فإن كان أكثر من ذلك فهم شركاء في الثلث. And if it is a man who has no ancestors or descendants and he has maternal half siblings, each one of them will get 1/6. And if there is more, they all get 1/3, and they divide it amongst themselves. They divided للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين, right? For the male 2 shares and the female 1 share, right? Wrong.
No, you just said 1/6. They have to be equal share for that side. For the maternal
Yeah.
side.
If you have like 3 boys and 3 girls, 3 brothers and 3 sisters, maternal, it is not 2 and 1. It is not 2 and 1, 2 shares for the brother, 1 share for the sister. It is equal shares for the brothers and sisters. Once again, femininity is not the cause of having the inheritance. So why is it like this here? Why is it here equal shares for the brother and sister? Whereas at the end of Surah An-Nisa, when it talks about the full sibling, يستفتونك قل الله يفتيكم في الكلالة امرؤ هلك ليس له ولد وله أخت فلها نصف ما ترك وهو يرثها إن لم يكن لها ولد فإن كانت 2 فلهما الثلثان مما ترك وإن كانوا إخوة رجالا ونساء فللذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين يبين الله لكم أن تضلوا والله بكل شيء عليم. So at the end of Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they ask you, tell them, in imru'un halaka, if a man died and he has no child and he has a sister, then she inherits, she gets half of his inheritance. Half of his inheritance. And if it is more than one sister, they get 2/3. 2/3 of the inheritance, like the daughters. But here there are no daughters. Here there are no daughters, and there are no parents. No parents, no daughters. So she's getting, the sister is getting, the full sister or the paternal sister is getting 1/2, 2 sisters, 2 halves, and then if they are brothers and sisters, then they get 2 shares for the brother, 1 share for the sister. 2 shares for the brother, 1 share for the sister. Why is it different here? When we were talking about the maternal siblings in the other verse in Surah An-Nisa, in the beginning of Surah An-Nisa, we were saying 1/6 for the maternal half sibling. For the half sibling from the maternal side, 1/6 for the brother, 1/6 for the sister, and if it is many, they share the 1/3, equal shares for the brothers and sisters. Think about it. Why? So femininity is not, causing the having of the inheritance here, but it is causing it there for the full sibling. Think about it. Why?
You get from both the parents, because at that time what the siblings might have, so you can get from both, whereas in the other one, the only relation you have is through the maternal, so once the relation is gone.
No, but it still doesn't answer the question. Why are the maternal siblings being treated equally, whether they are boys or girls? So brothers and sisters, they get equal shares, but when it comes to the full siblings, the brothers are getting more than the sisters. And the answer to this question will actually give you the answer to the rest of this hadith, which is فَمَا أَبْقَتِ الْفَرَائِدْ فَلِأَوْلَى رَجُلٍ ذَكَرٍ. Whatever is left behind will go to the closest male relative. Why is it the closest male relative? If you know the answer to this one, why the maternal siblings are getting equal shares and the full siblings are getting unequal shares, where the brother is getting double of the sister, think about it. Do you know the responsibility of al-asaba in Islam? Al-asaba is the paternal relatives, is the family members on the paternal side. It is your paternal uncle. It is your father's brother. It is your father's uncle. It is that side. That used to be just like an insurance company. That used to be like a co-op. They have huge responsibilities. If you run someone over with your car, and now all of a sudden you have to pay them 500,000 riyals, which is the blood money. Who pays that? Insurance company. It is your clan, your tribe. It starts from your sub-clan, the closest male relatives. So the closest male relatives are sharing your problems. So why is it not fair that they get, your inheritance, the rest of your inheritance? Keep in mind, you don't have daughters, you don't have sisters, you don't have anything. that will be, treated unjustly, or that will be deprived of inheritance. You have nothing. So why is it unfair that the closest male relatives get the rest, when the closest male relatives will be responsible for your troubles and your, blunders? They will take care of it. And this was happening throughout the ages, that they would come together and they will share the responsibility of what you have done, whether it's compensation, blood money, or compensation for something that you did foolishly, or anything, that they will have to join in and take care of that responsibility. Then in this way, we understand that it is a perfect social balance. Just like the perfect ecological balance, there is a perfect social balance. You don't see it from all sides. You don't see it with a comprehensive outlook. You see it only from one angle. So you may perceive inequity by looking from one angle, because you're not able to look at it all. It is just like this example. Just like this example. You try to, give justice to the women who are treated unfairly by their husbands and left out to rot as single mothers, or single this or that. So you're trying to do justice to them, but at the same time, you are scaring away many potential husbands from marriage. You're scaring them away from marriage. And here, you just go and read the whole thing that I read part of it for you. Go read it all. It's on the libertarianrepublic.com, marriage. Why men aren't getting married anymore. And then there is a related article right underneath it also, which talks about seven legal rights and privileges afforded only to women. And it is basically, the strength of these articles is that they are written by women. And they are written by women that cannot be considered sympathetic to Islam, or sympathetic to, the Middle East, or Arab culture, or this culture or that culture. It's just like libertarian women are writing these considerably truthful articles.
Well balanced.
Yeah, well balanced articles. But it just shows you. It shows you that people will come to recognize, the after effect of what they have done. They will come to recognize it. When will they recognize it? Some people are astute enough to recognize it. I'm not even saying astute enough to recognize it this early, because it's already too late. But even this late, it is too early for some people, because they are still not seeing it. When can they see it? After complete collapse of the system. That is the weakness of humanity, is that they get so, basically zealot about their convictions, and they have too much contempt for any other views, until their system completely collapses. Did you see how communists were completely convinced that they are writing the end of history when communism started? And then, even after 1 decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, when communism was on the rise, they felt that they're writing the end of history. This is the perfect system. We're writing the end of history. And then the complete collapse of communism. And keep in mind, those are very intelligent people. Those are genius professors, philosophers, this, that, they felt so wholeheartedly and so stubbornly that they have come up with the perfect system of life, and that's it, we're writing the end of history. And then only a few decades later, the whole thing collapsed. The whole thing imploded from within. And nowadays, you find another set of people also believing that they are writing the end of history and they came up with the perfect system. And they are not seeing the problems that are infesting or afflicting or befalling the very perfect system they're talking about. And they're not seeing the manifestations of the collapse. The thing is, some systems are more resilient because they are a bit closer to the fitra, the genuine human disposition. So when it comes economically to capitalism versus a communism, capitalism makes more sense. It's closer to the perfect. It is not the perfect balance, economic balance. The trickle-down economies are not the perfect model. However, it is closer to the perfect balance than communism, which only fosters indifference and a lack of motivation and lack of creativity and lack of everything, and causes the rapid collapse. So a system that is not perfect but closer to that which is perfect will be more resilient and will not suffer the same radical collapse that another system that is too far removed from the perfect balance would suffer. Yet the perfect balance is only known to the one who created it, the one who made it. And that is why when the beauty of surrendering to Islam, it is basically, that there is a perfect balance in everything. That there is a perfect ecological balance. That there is a perfect social balance. That there is a perfect economic balance. Your lifetime will not be enough to figure it out. So what you're trying to look for where God, who created this universe and created the perfect balance, where He left you a message, a code that actually contains that perfect balance, that instructs you in preserving that perfect balance and guiding you to that perfect balance. And then once you find this code, you look for it, because you may have not been born Muslim. You look for it, and you compare, and you look, and you search, and you research, and you do all of that. And then once you find it, the ultimate peace and tuma'nina will come once you surrender to it. And that is the meaning of submission. Just surrender, submit to it. And then when you surrender to it, it is so beautiful, because you're just not so worried about whether you're right or wrong. You want to get it right by having a good understanding of it. Not that you will come back at the end of your life to figure out that you were in the wrong vehicle, that you have taken the wrong road. No, you're sure of the road, but you're just trying to figure out how to maneuver your journey on that road. Which it is important at the end of to say that Allah gives us guidelines, leaving so much room for human creativity and human thought, because we don't want to go to that extreme either. we want to understand that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala left us with guidelines in those areas, Allah did not leave us detailed rulings so that there would be enough room. Allah gave us philosophical foundations and some guidelines and some milestones and bounds to prevent us from getting lost. Some philosophical foundations, you know, the Islamic equity, you know, transparency in transactions, you know, taking away speculation and excessive risk taking, you know, philosophical foundations. And then you have major rulings which would serve as milestones and prohibitions that serve as bounds to protect you from getting lost and getting off the path, you know. And then after this, those foundations and milestones and, you know, instructions and you know, borders and bounds, there is so much room for you to use your mind, use your creativity, use your thought for the betterment of your condition, socially, economically, and in every regard. And you come up with laws that are consistent, we, human beings, come up with laws that are consistent with those guidelines. And in this case, we would not be competing with Allah for His jurisdiction or for His authority, because those laws will be consistent in line with His teachings. And that is all. You know, it is not just a matter of like everything, all of the economic theories, like someone. No, none of the people that are talking about the Islamic way of life are claiming this. You know, if this was in Middle Age, in Europe in the Middle Ages, where they thought that that everything was written somewhere in some religious book, Muslims have never said that. You know, we're talking about scholars, Muslim scholars, the public. They could have whatever fascinations they have about anything, but we're talking about well-grounded scholars. They did not say that. The Prophet did not say that. The Prophet said clearly, "Antum a'lam bi umuri dunyakum." You know the affairs of your dunya better. So what I came to give you is guidelines, milestones, bounds, and then you figure it out after this. Just watch for this, watch for that. You know, keep an eye on those milestones, understand this philosophical foundation, and move. Use your mind, use your thought, use your creativity to move forward. So whenever you get involved in any discussion with non-Muslims, with even Muslims that don't really believe in Islam as a system, it is important that you, one, when they talk about Christianity, tell them which Christianity are you talking about? Is it your Christianity that you made up, or is it the Christianity that was taught by St. Paul, let alone the Christianity that was taught by Jesus, peace be upon him? Second, when you talk to people that don't subscribe to a religion, it is important for you to be cognizant of the challenges of the modern culture, of the failures of the modern culture, to be aware of, you know, reading an article like this. And it is important for you to diversify your portfolio of, you know, knowledge and awareness, you know, like, so reading an article like this would be important for a Muslim that is involved in da'wah, that is speaking with the people, because those are not Muslim. They're realizing some of the challenges that, you know, the modern lifestyle had caused. They're realizing how the modern lifestyle and the feminist movement as a manifestation of the modern lifestyle had the harm that it caused to the institution of marriage and to the stability of that institution, which is vital and essential for, you know, the well-being of the society. Studies show that, you know, multitudes, you know, scores of studies show that, you know, the family structure, the conventional, traditional and conventional, those words that people actually look down at those words. Conventional is bad, traditional is bad, as if there was this internist who wrote a book, Sir Hutchinson. He wrote a book, and at the beginning of the book, he had a supplication. He's a British internist, and at the beginning of the book, he had a supplication that I found to be very wise. And he said, from too much contempt for that which is old, and too much zeal for that which is new, may God the Lord deliver us all. So basically, I found this to be quite an ingenious supplication. It is true that some of the people have the mental limitation, that will make them always have zeal for anything that is new, because new to them means progress, as if progress or newness has to always be positive, which is certainly untrue. So you want to talking to Christians, figure out which Christianity are we talking about, and if we're talking about Jesus' Christianity, you will not find a lot of differences. Talking to non-Christians, it is important for them. It is important for you to make them aware of the failures of the modern lifestyle, and the illnesses and the defects that will cause it to bring man closer and closer to misery than happiness, which it is doing a good job at so far. Skyrocketing depression rates and skyrocketing psychological illnesses that are creeping down to children and younger and younger and younger children is only a manifestation of that. قولوا قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.